I'm now going to derive the quadratic formula. We're going to begin with a quadratic expression and set that equal to 0. We're going to use a technique called complete the square, which hopefully you're familiar with already. In this technique, we need to make sure that the value in front of the x squared is 1. This means that we're going to need to factor out the a so that we get that x squared. So inside the brackets, we'll have this 1x squared we want. Now we're going to focus on these first two terms, so I'm going to factor out that a out of the first two. It's a little weird with variables, but there's a little trick here we can use. We can say b times x over a. Because watch, this is going to work quite nicely for us. If I just show you quickly expanding this back out again, so a times x is ax squared, and then we go a times the second term, and we get a times bx over a, right? And look, these a's cancel out, and we get back what we started with. So it works. All right, so let's carry on. We've got our brackets here. And what we're going to need to do now is create our zero pair. So what that means is we're going to add and subtract the same value. And we're going to carefully select this value. So what we're going to do is take this middle term right here. This term right here, and that's with the x there. We're going to take that and we're going to divide that by 2. So we're going to take this, divide it by 2, and then we're going to square it. Now using our fraction rules, we can say what's in our brackets to become b over 2a. And then I'm now going to apply this squared to each term inside the bracket. And we can do this because there's no addition inside there. If there's addition or subtraction there, we can't do this, but there's only multiplication and division, so we can. So I can apply the squared to the b squared, 2 squared, a squared. And this gives us b squared over 4a squared. All right, so now we've got x squared plus b over a plus our b squared over 4a squared minus b squared over 4a squared plus c equals 0. Okay, this looks really messy, but we are now going to kind of do things as we always do. We focus on these first three terms here. Right? And that's a perfect square trinomial, believe it or not. So there's a little trick I like to use when using complete the square. This value right here, before we actually apply the squared to everything, this value here turns out to be the second term in this binomial. So basically we've taken this perfect square trinomial and expressed it in this binomial squared. So we got that minus b squared over 4a squared plus c equals 0. Now, as before, like we always do, we expand the bracket out with these two terms. So we've got a times x plus b over 2a squared, and then minus a b squared over 4a squared. Now let me clean this up. We can cancel out one of these a's here, so let's do this like that. All right, so we've expanded out our brackets, And now we are on our way to getting x alone. So looking at this, our goal now is to go after this x value right here. So we're going to bring all these other things. We're going to bring the c over, we're going to bring this over, we're then going to bring the a over, and then we can go from there. So let's bring these two terms over to the other side. We're going to be left with a times x plus b over 2a squared. We're going to have b squared over 4a, oops, yep, 4a plus, or sorry, minus c. All right, here we are. Now we're going to bring the a over, divide both sides by a. So we now have got b squared over 4a minus c all over a. We now want to square root both sides. So let me write this in a color here. So I'm going to square root this side. And when I square root the other side, as we know, we need to write plus or minus on the one side. The side that's opposite the x, all right? So now we've got that. Let's create some space here. All right, we have now, this gives us x plus b over 2a. Look how that bracket with the squared is now gone. They like canceled out with the square root. And we've got now plus or minus square root b squared over 4a minus c over a. Okay. Let's do something here to allow us to continue to simplify. We are going to, bring this to the other side. Bring this to the other side, and we have this. Now inside the bracket, I'm going to let's find a common denominator for this top term here. So we're going to want a 4a on the top, sorry, on the bottom of both here. So we're going to have b squared over 4a, and this c term, I'm going to multiply 4a on the top and on the bottom. So look, if I cancel this out, I'm back to having c. So, but it's very nice because now we've got 4a in both of these two terms. Because of that, we can now rewrite this as b squared minus 4ac over 4a. Let me be a little more careful with this. This needs to be a little bit larger. Over 4a over a. And let me carefully organize this so we know we're like this. We almost have it. Let me keep on going here. All right, so we have x equals negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of. All right, let's clean this up. There's a rule that states that if you have a fraction that looks like this, that it now becomes for a squared. And where did I get that 4a squared? Well, we have, if I be a little more careful, we just multiply our 4a, like this 4a, with this a, and it stays in our denominator. Right? And then 4a times a is a squared. So here we are. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply my square root to this and this, right? Because the square root is simply an exponent to the power of 1/2. So we're going to use our exponent rules here and do that. So we take the square root of our top of our fraction there, and then we're going to square root the bottom. Now this here should make you feel like, oh man, this looks a lot like this now. We almost you can see we have the b squared minus 4ac now. We've got this negative b out front, but we got to kind of do one more step to clean this up to finish it off. So what we can do is write negative b over 2a. We'll continue simplifying. We can't simplify the top of our fraction here. Oops, that's a little ugly. Let's go square root of b squared minus 4ac. And here, though, we can simplify that. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of a squared is a. And here you can see we almost have it. Here we have a common denominator. Both terms have a 2a in the denominator, so we can now write this. And this is our last step. We're going to write everything in our numerators. And everything is all divided by 2a. And this is it. We've got it. We've got our quadratic formula. Boom.